There are many places with incredible realities, but surely very few know that, in one of the most desired destinations for tourists around the planet, there are laws so strict that even the simple act of kissing in public could lead to a sentence of whipping in a public square. In this new video of Uncensored World, we are going to discover the wonderful Maldives, one of the most desired, but at the same time enigmatic countries on the planet. The Maldives, a place with unique curiosities such as being one of the countries that could disappear under the seawaters before, due to being the lowest in the world, or that here the greatest risk to life is not in sharks or crime, but in the hard coconuts that fall from its tall palm trees. An archipelago of Muslim majority, with inhabitants originally from India and Sri Lanka, who maintained ancient traditions as amazing as that of women immolating themselves on the funeral pyre of their deceased husbands, or the practice of fraternal polyandry, where a woman could marry several men as long as they were brothers to each other. Pay attention and don't miss this video because we assure you that everything in it will surprise you. Let's get started. The Maldives is an island country made up of 26 coral atolls stretching across a vast expanse in the Indian Ocean. Although geographically dispersed, the Maldives are part of the South Asian region. This archipelago is located southwest of Sri Lanka and India, countries from which its ancestors and many of its current inhabitants originate. The capital and largest city is Malé, a city known and famous also for its lack of space for new constructions, something that can be seen with the naked eye and leaves people mesmerized. As the demand for housing and services grew, the people of Malé adopted creative and practical solutions to maximize every available square centimeter. This has resulted in a compact and vibrant urban fabric where buildings often stand in close proximity to each other, defining the landscape of this extraordinary city. The urban design reflects its importance as the political, economic, and cultural center of this country. But this city is not only home to government institutions and business centers, it also serves as the main entry point to the Maldives, receiving international flights connecting tourists to the various world-renowned resorts and destinations. From Malé, visitors can head to the picturesque islands with their luxury resorts, white sandy beaches, and crystal-clear waters, seeking a unique paradise experience. However, from the heights, the view of Malé also reveals a disturbing reality for this country, that of being the lowest country in the world. With an average elevation barely 1.5 meters above sea level, the Maldives Islands are at serious risk of disappearing soon due to rising seas and the effects of climate change. Apart from that, it is known that more than 80% of the territory is known to be below 1 meter above sea level. Taking all this into account, it is estimated that by the year 2050, a large part of the Maldives could face permanent flooding and even the total disappearance of some of its islands, which makes all its inhabitants understand the need for urgent measures to survive. In many of the islands of this archipelago, these problems are observed, and it is easy to see dikes or sandbags to prevent water from entering the island and eating the beach. In the year 2022, the government has begun to plan the construction of a floating city to ensure that little by little its population and treasure does not end up submerged under the precious waters of the Indian Ocean. Hulhumalé Island, which you will meet at the end of this documentary, is a totally artificial island that helps to understand how the Maldives are facing these challenges. Historically, the Maldives were inhabited by peoples of Dravidian origin, a term that refers to peoples who speak Dravidian languages and share a common culture. This ethnic group is found mainly in southern India and parts of Sri Lanka, the first settlers to establish communities on the islands. You will soon learn some surprising facts about the first inhabitants of the Maldives. But before that, it is good to continue with its recent history, a reality that has much to do with its extraordinary present. For centuries, the Maldives were under the influence of different colonial powers, including the Portuguese, the Dutch, and finally the British, before achieving independence in the year 1965. The British presence in particular left a significant mark on the education and administration of the archipelago. promoting English as one of the official and commonly used languages in the Maldives. This proficiency in English greatly facilitates the experience of tourists visiting the Maldives. As a language widely understood and used in the tourism sector, it allows visitors to easily integrate and enjoy the natural and cultural wonders of this country to the fullest. Apart from the language, religion in the Maldives may surprise many, as the country is almost entirely Muslim. This Islamization began in the distant 12th century, and since then, it has been a central pillar of life and culture in these islands that has eventually taken over. That is why today the dominant religion in the Maldives is Sunni Islam. This religious influence has profoundly shaped the country's society and laws, including strict regulations on morality and public conduct, such as Sharia law. A law that, although many tourists do not know it, is the one that governs the behavior not only of its population, but also of the tourists. Although, as you will see, the latter is not always very clear. Sharia, or Islamic law, is a legal system derived from the Quran and other Islamic religious sources. In the Maldives, this law profoundly influences the country's social and legal norms. One of the most visible manifestations of the application of this law in the Maldives is the regulation of behavior in public. For example, bathing in bikinis or swimsuits is restricted to so-called bikini beaches, areas designated specifically for tourists. On all other beaches, both locals and visitors must be fully clothed. This restriction is strictly enforced, and non-compliance can result in fines and even imprisonment. In addition to dress codes, other intimate displays in public such as kissing, walking around scantily clad, or transgressing other rules are punishable by law. In some places, these sentences are published in local newspapers to warn the population so that they can observe the alleged public indoctrination, such as whippings, and thus take example. Of particular concern is the criminalization of LGBTQ in the Maldives. Same-gender relationships are illegal under Islamic law to the extent that they can include house arrest, deportation, years in jail, flogging, and even the death penalty. This strict enforcement of the law means that any manifestation of an intimate nature that does not align with Islamic norms is severely punished. A recent and well-known example of the severity of these laws was the case of English boxer April Hunter, who was forced to delete a photo from her Twitter profile in which she kissed her girlfriend on an island in this country. The pressure and the risk of extreme reprisals led her to remove the image quickly, underlining the seriousness with which the country takes these laws. All these facts serve to warn you that, although the Maldives are a dream tourist destination, whenever we travel to unknown destinations, it is important to be aware of the laws of the place, even more so if they are as strict as the Sharia. Apart from these recommendations, also intimate toys or obscene material or magazines are punishable by law, so it is good to control what one carries in the suitcase before entering. This type of prohibitions, as you can see, is closely related to religion and has a lot to do with the fact that, hardly in Maldives, you can find a person or family with dogs as pets. The reason, dogs are also forbidden in this archipelago. The reason for this prohibition lies in Islamic beliefs. For Muslims, dogs are considered dirty animals. According to tradition, it is mentioned in the Quran that a dog caused an infection to the Prophet Muhammad. For this reason, it is rare to see a devout Muslim with a dog, as they are not only considered impure, but also forbidden by Islamic law. Impure but not dangerous, since one of the greatest dangers of these islands are not these animals, nor other apparently more dangerous animals such as the many sharks that roam their coasts. The biggest danger of this country are the coconut trees. That is why it is good to know that you should not be so afraid of snorkeling or diving under the beautiful crystalline waters of its islands, but rather be careful and look more towards the sky. According to local statistics, coconut palms cause more accidents and deaths annually than sharks or any other marine species combined. It is therefore common to see local people walking with their hands on their heads or wearing helmets in the middle of beaches or wilder areas. And the reason is this: Maldivians, which is the correct way to call the local people, are more afraid of coconuts than of animals or people. Speaking of people and danger, it is good to know that the Maldives is one of the safest countries on the planet in terms of crime. The low crime rate is due to several factors. Firstly, the geographical structure of the country, with its many scattered islands, makes it difficult for criminals to operate undetected. In addition, the island community is close-knit, and Maldivians are often vigilant about the movements of visitors and strangers, which adds an extra layer of vigilance. Another reason for security in the Maldives is the strict enforcement of laws. The country, as you know, follows Islamic law, which imposes severe penalties for crimes such as theft and violence. Acts such as stealing a backpack or suitcase can be punishable by whipping, and even such extreme measures as the amputation of the thief's hand. These drastic measures deter potential offenders and contribute to the country's high security. In addition, the Maldives depends almost exclusively on tourism, which motivates the authorities to maintain a safe and welcoming environment for visitors. Police presence is notable in tourist areas, ensuring that visitors can enjoy their vacation without worry. Law enforcement is well-trained and proactive in crime prevention, further enhancing security. Local culture also plays a crucial role in safety. Maldivians are known for their hospitality and friendliness towards tourists, and this creates an atmosphere of trust and tranquility. This security, coupled with the incredible beauty of its waters and islands, are surely the two main factors why many choose this place as the preferred destination for their dream vacation. Many voices point to the existence of two realities in the Maldives, that of the locals and that of the tourists. According to this duality, in the tourist areas and resorts, many of these strict and extreme laws are not applied with the same rigor. In this way, tourists can enjoy greater freedom and flexibility, especially in terms of dress and behavior in public, which would be unacceptable in other parts of the country. A clear example is that alcoholic beverages of any kind are forbidden by law in this country, while in the resorts you can drink as many as your pocket allows. This also happens with the dress code on the beaches because, while bathing in bikinis or swimsuits is strictly limited to the bikini beach on the local islands, in the private resorts this restriction does not exist, and tourists can enjoy the beaches in bathing suits without any problems. Similarly, acts considered intimate, such as kissing in public, which might be punishable in local areas, are often tolerated in tourist areas. This differentiation allows tourists to experience the beauty and luxury of the Maldives without constantly worrying about these strict laws, while locals continue to live under a very different legal regime. Outside the resorts, the laws change, so it is very important to be informed and respect the local rules to avoid misunderstandings and ensure that you enjoy this paradisiacal destination. A tropical paradise made up of approximately 1,200 islands, a large number of which are completely uninhabited. Although the islands have been inhabited for more than 3,000 years, it is estimated that more than 800 of these are still uninhabited. Of the remaining islands, 200 are populated by locals, while another 110 are home to luxury hotels and resorts. The rest are used for tourism, agriculture, or other industrial activities. It is good to know that some of these islands are so small that they cannot be used for anything other than picnics or day trips, since due to their size and the lack of life or infrastructure of any kind, it is not possible to carry out any activity on them. As we mentioned at the beginning of the video, most of the local population has origins from the nearby regions of India and Sri Lanka. The presence of these peoples is reflected in the cultural and linguistic heritage of the country before the arrival of Islam. In that remote past, the Maldives was inhabited by communities practicing Hinduism and Buddhism, brought by early settlers and traders from these neighboring regions. These communities maintained traditions that are still maintained today in their countries of origin, among them the most striking, many of which are also believed to have been performed among Maldivians, are the tradition of sati carried out by the inhabitants of Hindu origin, or the fraternal polyandry typical of the Sri Lankans. Sati was an ancestral practice originating in the Indian subcontinent which involved a widow voluntarily immolating herself on the funeral pyre of her deceased husband. This practice was rooted in the belief that accompanying her husband to the next world ensured his spiritual well-being in the afterlife. Although this custom was banned by British colonial authorities in the 19th century due to its extremely violent and patriarchal nature, it persisted in some rural areas for a time before being completely eradicated. Or so it seems, since in places like Varanasi, women are still forbidden to attend cremations for fear that some of them will throw themselves into the bonfires to accompany their deceased husbands. One thing that fraternal polyandry is a cultural practice that was observed among the Sinhalese of Sri Lanka, where a woman could marry several brothers who were considered co-husbands. This particular form of fraternal marriage not only strengthened family ties between siblings, but also ensured continuity of the family line and shared ownership of resources. This form of marriage reflects the cultural and social complexities that have characterized traditional societies in these areas of the planet. At this point, we take the opportunity to ask you, what do you think of these practices? What impressed you most about the Maldives? Pause the video and leave us your comment. You know that doing so is the best way to support Uncensored World to keep working to bring you the best content every week. So thank you. Some of these differences also arose in the middle of the 19th century, when the people of the Maldives used seashells as an international trade currency. The shell in question was known as cowrie shell, commonly found in the Indian Ocean, which made it easily accessible to the population. Today, the Maldivian rupee is the legal tender in the country, but an image of a conch shell can still be found on one of the coins as a nod to the recent history of this country. Maldivians not only used shells as coins, they have also used coral for bigger things, such as building their traditional houses for decades. Today, building with coral is forbidden, but many traditional houses are still seen in Malé and on some of its islands. This coral also has a lot to do with the incredible beauty of its beaches. Famous for its white sandy beaches, the Maldives has been a tourist hotspot for the past 50 years. But besides this dazzling color, there is something else that makes these shores considered almost unique in the world. The reason for this distinction lies in the fact that Maldivian beaches are made of sun-dried, sun-bleached coral, making them incredibly rare, as such coral beaches account for only 5% of the world's coastlines. But not everything is good in the Maldives, and one of these negative realities is feeding, which is nothing more than feeding animals, so that tourists can get a closer look at them on tours. This activity is done in many countries around the world, but certainly not in such an exaggerated way as in the Maldives. The most obvious example is that in order to swim close to nurse or cat sharks, a species that is usually solitary, they sleep during the day and feed at night. The tourist and economic interest of organized tours has led to the daily sighting of groups of these sharks hanging around boats near the surface, because the organizers feed these species uncontrollably for this purpose. This is seriously altering the habits of these sharks, to such an extent that even attacks by these species on humans are increasing. When sharks and other marine species are regularly fed by humans, they begin to associate human presence with food. This can alter their natural behavior and lead to an increase in shark-human interactions. Instead of keeping their natural distance, some sharks may become bolder and get too close to humans in search of food, increasing the risk of accidental bites. In addition to the ecological impact of changing animal feeding behavior, this practice also poses safety risks to tourists. Although these animals are usually docile, during feeding interactions, their behavior can become unpredictable, especially if they become accustomed to human presence as a food source. Therefore, Maldivian authorities and tour operators are working to regulate these activities and minimize their negative impact on the marine habitat and on the safety of visitors. Everything you are learning about makes the Maldives known worldwide for its white sandy beaches, crystal clear waters, and rich coral reefs teeming with marine life, which has made it one of the top tourist destinations on the planet, especially for luxury tourism or honeymoons. It is often perceived as an exclusive paradise for millionaires. But it is important to note that this archipelago offers options for all types of travelers, as you are about to see. To get to the Maldives, the most common way is through Malé International Airport, which receives flights from various parts of the world. From here, to move between the islands, you can use seaplane services, speedboats, or local ferries, each with options to suit different budgets. Getting from Malé to islands such as Maafushi, known for offering accommodation options for everyone, is fairly straightforward and accessible for all budgets. From the port of Malé, you can take a public ferry that connects to several local islands, including Maafushi. Local ferries usually have regular schedules and are certainly the most economical option to move between islands in the Maldives. The cost of the ferry from Malé to Maafushi varies, but is generally around US $3 each way, depending on the season and availability. Schedules may be limited, so it is advisable to check schedules in advance to plan your trip. Once in Maafushi, accommodation prices are also cheaper compared to the more exclusive islands of the Maldives. You can find hostels and small hotels that offer clean and comfortable rooms, with rates ranging from approximately $50 to $100 US per night. On this island, you can enjoy a normal meal in local restaurants for about $10, or do activities such as snorkeling, or organized tours for less than $50. Maafushi Island is known for its white sandy beaches, crystal clear waters ideal for snorkeling, and for offering a more authentic experience of the local Maldivian life, away from the luxury resorts, more detached from the culture and reality of these islands. In addition to enjoying water activities, visitors to Maafushi can explore the island, enjoy local food in inexpensive restaurants, and also participate in excursions to other nearby islands. Of course, whether you travel to Maafushi or to other islands, it is highly recommended that you always keep in mind the laws and regulations governing this beautiful country to avoid any surprises. Before finishing, to know this paradise in more detail, it is good to understand that beyond Malé and Maafushi, there are 3 islands that stand out above the rest. Among them, Fulhadu Island is famous for hosting one of the few pink sand beaches in the world. Fulhadu Beach offers an authentic experience, away from the hustle and bustle of the big resorts, and is ideal for those seeking a serene and natural environment, to enjoy the beauty of its unspoiled landscapes and the peace of its turquoise waters. Fulhadu Island is known for an amazing natural phenomenon, the Sea of Stars, which attracts visitors from all over the world, and has become one of the most common activities among the country's tours. This phenomenon occurs due to the bioluminescence of microorganisms called phytoplankton that make the waters glow brightly in the dark. This surreal experience makes Fulhadu a magical destination, especially during dark moonless nights. The last of the Maldivian islands is also the newest, as it is an artificial island developed recently to meet the challenge of rising sea levels and erosion of natural islands in the Maldives. Fulhadu stands out for its modern infrastructure, white sandy beaches and urban planning that combines residences, stores, and green areas, and is an example of how the Maldives are adapting to climate change by creating new living and tourist areas that can withstand environmental threats. At Uncensored World, we hope that this tour of the exotic Maldives has been as exciting for you as it has been for us. Thinking about it, and the effort it takes us to make these videos, we would love you to leave us a nice like and your comment. That's the best way you have to help us to keep bringing you the best content every week. So, thank you. And if you enjoyed this video and you're not subscribed yet, don't wait any longer and do it now by activating the little bell so you don't miss the videos we make every week. Videos like this one that you can enjoy now to know one of the most fascinating corners of the planet. Don't miss it and discover the wonders that this place has to offer.